Yeah, Muzz, he's really confident. Our high performance group are confident that he'll be okay, and we'll give him right up till game time. But at the moment, he's 95% good to go. Yep.
Were he not to come up, you just go smaller by the looks of your emergencies?
Well, yeah, we'd probably look similar to what we did on the weekend, after half time. We've got Schoenberg on our emergencies, who's in some really good form at SANFL level. And then we've got the two big boys in Gallant and Himmelberg there. So that'll be a decision we'd have to make. I don't think we'll go to that decision. I think Muzz will be fine. It was really a bit of management throughout the week and making sure we got that right.
Filthy okay?
Yeah, Riley all good to go. Landed on his knee in the game, and so again that was one where we just make sure we get him through the week and that he's ready to go again.
Was there, just with a few sore boys in the short turnaround, was there hesitation to manage a couple this week?
No. It was. I mean, there's always discussion about how we do it during the week, as we've spoken about right throughout the year. But this week was really about getting the group ready to go and bouncing back after a loss.
Some of their mids, probably a year or so's development behind you guys, but still plenty of skill, the likes of Wardlaw and Phillips.
Sure, yeah, and a lot stronger than maybe they get, external benefit. They are playing some great footy. We had a good look through early this week, with our players. We moved on pretty quickly from the Collingwood hit out. We went straight to North, and looking at their footy, they're playing some great footy, especially stoppage. And as you mentioned, they've got a lot of talent through that midfield. They've been scoring well from there as well. So we've got our work cut out for us, but we'll go in, hopefully unchanged, and look to sort of bounce back from disappointment last week.
What was behind the Shoal decision?
There's obviously a bit in that. I mean, rather than us mess around, Sholey will be our sub on the weekend. Ned's probably given us exactly what we're after in the last 4 or 5 weeks in that particular role, and came on and impacted the game really well on the weekend. It's something that we have to look at, having the same player in the sub role, for multiple weeks in a row. Do they need to get a good hit out at some stage? He's done that extremely well, and now Sholey will take that role on this weekend.
Matt, when you say North are playing good footy, it's hard to sort of see that when you look at their later position and their results. I mean, they sort of had a crack at the Bulldogs and were a bit wasteful. What parts of their game do you think, when you say they're playing good footy, and you obviously prepare for their best, what parts do you see them being dangerous at? Yeah,
they're playing a style of footy that some of the best teams in the comp are playing. Very similar to Collingwood. They're taking the game on, attacking off intercept. I mentioned their stoppage stuff. They're scoring from stoppage. They're in the Bulldogs game. That game was tight, and there's key moments that get in the third and fourth quarter where you look at what the Bulldogs are able to do in those key moments. They're able to get the job done. Similar to those sides sitting up the top, the competition is so even, and it's those small moments in games that make a difference. And so if you're a little bit off on a weekend, you can find yourself where those key moments in the third and fourth don't matter. You're behind by a certain amount. So that's our key tomorrow. Our key tomorrow is to bring what we have been bringing at home games. We're starting to learn that now on the road as well. We're bringing some good footy. We're just not bringing the consistency of that good footy when we're away. But our guys can't wait to get out there. Hopefully we can get as many of our supporters here as we can on a Saturday afternoon, because as I've mentioned before, that drives our group, really inspires them and gives them that little bit extra energy.
From memory, Davies Junior cut loose last time. I mean, he drove the first half. I think he was dominant. Is there a plan to sort of limit his impact, or do you not go as close? You've juggled that in the past with Dacos, and whether you go right to them. How do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many talented players in the game that can sort of win the game off their own boot. He's one. Hard to stop as well. He's got speed and power. So we'll have a look at that. There's a couple of different ways. You can try it with 1v1. We'd like to go in more so from a team point of view, where you put a lot of work into these sort of players, so your shape holds up. That's how we'll look at it to start with on the weekend. But like any game, if things change, we've got Plan B, Plan C, Plan D in place.
What have you liked from having Ben Keys return to the midfield a bit more?
I love he's got energy. He's got super energy. We'll keep looking at that. He's been able to help out our midfield group. He's coming a little fresher when you're not in there every week, week in, week out, bashing and crashing. It's amazing how much fresher guys, say they are after that. I mean, Sloaney's done a bit of a balance, a bit of a mix of inside outside this year. and he feels fantastic at the moment. So we'll keep working that. We'll keep working on that with Pedler, Rochelle. Keys is one that we've done it with. Sloan as well. Even Saligo's had a bit of a mix, but hopefully in time that becomes our weapon. Is that we've got more than just the 4 midfielders to go through there, and we can change things when it's working or when it's not working.
You said last week was one of the tougher losses to take. How quickly were you able to get the group sort of focused on this week and changing their tack? Yeah,
we nail it on pretty much the day we get back. We have a good sit down and we go through why we didn't get the job done, how that can help us into the next month, make sure we get those things right, and we're on to North Melbourne pretty sharply.
Did you get clarity from the AFL over the questions you raised with them?
Yeah, the AFL have been amazing in that space. Not that we necessarily go too deep into it. It's probably asked about more so outside of the footy club. We get thrown in that we're asking a lot of questions, but Dan and the AFL umpires, they're always open to a conversation about rules, and there's things we're looking at the moment with standing the mark and some of the tackling rules that we want to make sure our players are on top of. We want to make sure they understand what they are. This week was no different.
So the Rankin decision, the clarity over the Miller, those sorts of things, you're satisfied with what they had to say?
Which Rankin decision?
The goal line, the review. No issues with that?
Oh, we didn't. We didn't even ask about the Rankin decision. No, we understand there's a human part to our game, and so, yeah, we as I said, we moved on reasonably quickly from last week.
Do you mind if I ask about Matt Crouch as well? I mean, last year it was he's working on his game. He's a valuable part of the footy club, and this year, I mean, he's only played the one game down in Geelong. Is there any way back for Matt? Do you see, is he consigned to a year in the sample?
No, not at all. Similar to, you can look in our sample side at the moment. Jacko Haitley's back in there. We've got Brown playing down back there, Schoenberg. He's in our emergencies as it sits, and that's more about a balance. When we pick an emergency group, we're mindful that a lot of people read into that's the next player up. These guys, we've got so many pressing for selection at the moment. By no means, and not taking anything away from where Schoenberg's at, by no means is he streaks ahead of the other mids back there. That's a balance conversation of what do we need in around that midfield. What sort of player. Matty's very much Matty's an elite first hands midfielder, very similar to Rory Laird. In that they play a similar role, and so we've got to be mindful how many of those guys we've got in the AFL side. Same way, Schoenberg's more of an outside sort of half forward on ball at this point in his career, and so we'll continue to look at that as well.
Has the trend of the most desired midfielders sort of changed? I guess out of Matt's favour a bit. You'll think guys like Mitchell and Matt, slower accumulators who were really valued a few years ago. Maybe that's the game has sort of moved away from that a little bit more.
The game's definitely fast. You'd say probably faster than it's ever been. I think you look at the sides that are sitting up towards the top, and our mob across the road have got a couple of players that have seemed to be changing the game. Zach Butters is a fantastic footballer and probably not the midfielder you saw 10 or 15 years ago. He's quick, he's got speed, and a lot of teams are now looking at that throughout that midfield area, and that comes with some rule change as well. The tackling rule has changed the game slightly. The stand rule has sped the game up and allowed those players to really use their speed and power. So this is something that even list management is constantly looking at, where the game's going, how the game's developing, what's next, what's coming next in the game, so that we can try and stay ahead of it. Not easy to do, but there's no doubt there's so much speed in the game at the moment.
You guys still confident that Tom Duday is going to resign?
Oh look, we'd love for Tom to re-sign. At the moment, that's not the conversation we're having with him. Those conversations have been put on hold slightly while he recovers and gets himself right. He was in yesterday. He's doing a lot of work now to make sure he gets that rehab right, that really important, post-surgery week or two, that he gets that spot on, and he's been doing that really well. So most of my conversations in the last week or two have just been around how he's going. How's them, how's the family, and making sure that they're getting what they need.
Are you confident?
Look, I think Tommy loves our footy club, and I think our footy club loves Tom, so we'll be doing everything we can.
Pushing for a finals berth, obviously, Matt, do you get involved in those conversations? Is that part of your jurisdiction on a weekly basis, I suppose, to sit down with players to sit down with Reedy and say, where are we at? Or is there a time in the year where you say, right now I want an update on our contracted guys? How do you juggle that?
That's ongoing and constant. I have an involvement in that, but we have a fantastic group of people that understand that and have a lot of experience. But I think you have to have connection in that space. The coach needs to understand what style of game we're playing, and so too does our list management group. So we're constantly in dialogue and meeting around what's best for our football club, what's best for our squad. Otherwise, we might head off in different directions.